Okay, so again, welcome. We have a couple of goals and objectives for this evening, and the first is really just to explain what is a petition. Have you ever, petitioned before? And if so, you will know what these petitions look like. But if this is your first time out, getting kind of a feel for what is expected, what you're going to be looking at on those petitions is going to be important. The second objective is to just review the do's and don'ts. Petitioning is a very meticulous thing at times. There are definitely some things that you should not be doing, or as signers who sign your petitions, you're going to be watching for specific things as they are signing to make sure that they're signing correctly, making sure that their information is in the correct location, just a kind of a wide array of things. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the do's and don'ts of petitioning. And then obviously the main objective, and this is regardless of if you are a rookie petitioner or a veteran petitioner, is to get Democrats on the ballot this primary. Obviously the only way that a candidate can get on the ballot at this point is to meet the minimum required number of signatures, have that turned into the Pennsylvania Department of State, and then get on the ballot for the spring. So that is our main objective, making sure that we're doing everything correct in our petitioning efforts to ensure that those Democratic candidates then are able to get on the ballot this spring. So let's jump in, and we're going to start off, as I said, just kind of by reviewing some important dates first and foremost. First day to circulate is next Tuesday, January 23rd. I know several of our candidates were able to get in today and start to build their petitions. So we're starting to see various various petitions from candidates coming to volunteers and to the county parties and those types of things. So it's important to remember, and we'll stress this a couple times throughout. First day to circulate is next Tuesday, January 23rd. Then you have about a 3 week window. You have till February 23rd to complete the circulation. All petitions need to be filed at the Department of State no later than close of business on February 13th. So most candidates are going to request that petitions are turned in early. Some will file early, some will not. Some will wait till the last day or two to file. But as long as those petitions are filed by the close of business on the 13th, and then as I mentioned, the minimum number of signatures are met, that candidate should get on the ballot. The one thing that could happen is someone within the party, someone that's in opposition to the candidate, can challenge those petitions. They have a week to do that. They can go online actually and download those petitions and check for errors, incorrect signings, any number of things. So all of those things that we're going to talk about, those don'ts that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, those are the things that could potentially get a petition challenged, and that's what we're trying to avoid. We want to try to make sure that these petitions are as error free as possible. So that's what we're hoping to do. We're hoping to make sure that our candidates do not have to deal with any challenges in that week after the circulation deadline hits. So once the challenge period passes, as long as there are no challenges and no questions about those petitions, then the candidate should be on the ballot for the spring, as long as they've met the requirements. So seems pretty straightforward, but as I said, as you'll see as we get into the petitioning, into the petitions themselves, there's a lot of little nuances that we need to pay attention to. So first up, this is what the petition is going to look like. This is the front and the back. Pay no attention to the candidate information on here because this is actually one of our statewide candidates from last year, their petition that they circulated. But this is exactly what all petitions should look like this year. All petitions are being generated through the Department of State, and therefore you will see that the petitions themselves are coming from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for every position that is on the ballot this year. That's a good thing. There are times where there are county ballots, or, I'm sorry, county petitions that are available. Those sometimes look different. Sometimes if the borough and city races, sometimes those petitions will look different. This is one of those years where we literally have one style of petition that we have to focus on. That actually makes it a little bit easier through the entire process. So let's take a look at just kind of an overview of these petitions. The first, the top portion is the candidate information. It's going to include the name of the office, the district. So if it is a statewide race, it'll say statewide. If it is a federal national race, it'll say national. So obviously for the presidential petitions that we'll get, it will say national there. And then as you break out into your various districts, whether it's congressional, state house, state senate, that will change there then as well. So the district number will be listed there. Personal information for the candidate will be listed, and then the county and the party of the signer as well. The last portion of this is that block of text at the bottom of the screen. And that's just the preamble. And essentially, that's the statement saying that if you sign this, you are attesting to the fact that you are who you say you are. You are allowed to sign this, and you're providing the information as accurately as possible. Then we get into, whoops, I'm sorry. Actually, one thing I do want to point out when we talk about the petitions at the top portion there is to pay attention to the county of the signers that's listed there. So in this one, you can see this one was from last year for York County. Pay attention to that. That is important because if you are in a race, a congressional race, a state house race, a state senate race that overlaps into a different county, you do need to have separate petitions for those counties. So, for example, here in York County, we have the congressional 10th, the race that's on the ballot this year. The congressional 10th includes Dauphin County, it includes Cumberland County, and it includes York County. And therefore, anyone that's in York County should be signing the York County petition. Anyone in Cumberland should sign a Cumberland petition. That is a potential snag. We've had individuals in the past that have circulated petitions that have had the wrong county on it. And say they were circulating in Cumberland County, but the petition itself said York County on it. That actually can you can actually have that entire petition thrown out because those individuals do not live in the county that they signed. So it is important to pay attention to that. Statewide races this year, there are 67 counties, so every county has their own specific petition for attorney general, auditor general, and treasurer. Same thing for the presidential race. The counties will be different. So again, make sure that when you are taking those petitions out, if you are the person that's circulating them, make sure that you have the correct one for the county that you're in, that you're circulating that petition in, and making sure that those that are signing it are actually from that county as well. So now we're going to get into kind of the meat of the petition itself. This is where the signatures go, essentially. You can see the various columns, the signature of the elector, the printed name, the address is listed out there, and the date of signing. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of, as I said, some of the nuances with each of these columns in a minute. But this is just kind of the overview. This is where, when you are out circulating a petition, this is where you're getting your signers to sign their names, sign their information, and date it. One thing I will tell folks all the time, just because you sign a petition does not mean that you have to vote for the person that you're signing for. And some folks think about, well, why would that be? Why would you sign for somebody that you wouldn't vote for? And in most cases, you are going to sign for the people that you intend to vote for. But we do have a lot of folks out there that want to see the democratic process work and see, different people be able to get on the ballot, and therefore they may sign for somebody that they normally wouldn't vote for, just because they feel like they should have the opportunity to get on the ballot in the spring. Just, as you're talking to kind of the everyday signers, the ones that maybe are not as familiar with the process or as familiar with the candidates themselves, just let them know this is not obligating them to sign. Sometimes that will help them be less hesitant to sign a document maybe that they've never seen before, or are not 100% sure of exactly what it is and what the intent of this is. So you'll have a number of spaces on the front that look like this. You also have a number on the back. And then at the bottom of the back page is the statement of the circulator. This will be completed by the circulator, whoever it is that has this petition, that is out getting signatures. They will complete this when the petition is done. You do not fill this information out before the petitioning is completed. So if you have, a full 30 signatures front and back on this, then great. What you'll do then is you can fill this out and you can say, all right, that petition is completed. If you have 10 signatures on the front, and you decide that that you're finished with that particular sheet, then you can sign it. But once you sign the statement of circulator, if you have any additional blank spots on that petition, you should not be getting signatures from other signers. You should be using a new petition for that. And that's just kind of standard protocol with that. For those that are veterans of petitioning, you used to need to get these petitions notarized. You do not need to do that anymore. That's something that has gone away probably about 3 or 4 years ago, primarily when the pandemic began. They took away the notarization of these particular petitions. So your statement of the circulator, your signature here as the circulator, is binding now. This is what they're looking for. You do not need to get it notarized, but when it gets turned into the Department of State, if there's any questions related to this petition, they're going to come back to you because you're the circulator of that particular petition. Okay, so I want to take a second and just ask if anybody has any questions about the kind of the general structure of the petitions. I know, as I said, we're going to kind of get into some of the meat here now and talk about what you should do, what you shouldn't do, those types of things. But any general questions about the petitions here? And you can either put those in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask that question as well. Okay. I don't see any so far. So, and that's good. That most of what we went over, I think, is pretty straightforward, just kind of the basics of the petition itself. Now here comes all the fun stuff. These are all the rules, the things that you have to pay attention to. And as I said, if you are careful, this should not be a major issue. But there are times where, people sign things, they are just not paying attention to what they're signing, or you're in a busy room with a number of people who are signing, and all of a sudden, somebody walks away and you look down and you recognize, oh my gosh, something's not right. We'll talk about how to correct some of those things as we go. but also some of the things that you should be watching for as individuals are signing. So as I said, we have the six columns. The first column is the signature of the elector. That is where they are going to sign their name. The printed name of the elector, they will print their name. I say that, I emphasize that because you do want to be careful that those two are not flip-flopped. I have not ever seen a petition thrown out because someone signed in the printed section and printed in the signed section. But I also know that, as we get more heated with our politics, we have to be careful with those kind of things and whether or not they would get questioned. To just make sure as individuals are signing that they are signing their signature in that first box and they are printing their name in the second box. Their house number, that's pretty standard. Wherever it is that they live, it should be the number of their street address. And then the place of residence, the street or road, that's the street name. The signer would write in that area, and whatever that might be. If it's Main Street, they can shorten it ST. If it's Avenue, so be it. So Robert, I see your question that says, do you need to put in an apartment number? You do not. You only need to put down the street number and the street name. You also should not put in a PO box. They will not accept PO boxes. So you do need to know the street number and the street name that you live on. Municipality. So this is the first place where you run into a couple issues. So the municipality is the as it says here, the municipality, the village, the borough, the city that a person lives in. So if someone lives, as we give the example here, at 125 Main Street in York, if they are in York City, you can put York City. If you do not live actually in the city, but you're in a township, you are going to want to then put the township name in there. So I'll give an example. I live in Manchester Township here in York County. My actual address is York, PA, but I would not put York there. I would put Manchester Township. And we do stress, make sure that you put down Manchester Township. You can put TWP because obviously that's a pretty small box there. You can abbreviate township, but make sure that you are putting down the actual municipality that you live in. And as I said, make sure you put that township after it because, as is the case all over the state, I live in Manchester Township, but there's also a Manchester borough. There are people that live in York City. There is also a York Township. So, of course, you run into some issues in that regard. You want to be careful with that. So just make sure that if as people are signing it, that you are clear in telling them that this should be their township, their city, or their borough. If you're working with a candidate and you're out knocking doors to get signatures, then that should all be provided on a walk list. That information should be there for individuals to use. So as you're signing, you can say, this is what needs to go in this particular box. If you are at an event, if you are at a public venue and you are getting random registered Democrats signing, then that's where you start to run into some issues. So just make sure that you're watching this carefully as you go through. And then the last thing is the date of the signing. And this is the date, obviously, that the signer is actually signing this form. Do not start before January 23rd. If there are dates before January 23rd, they are invalid, and they do potentially run the risk of throwing out the entire petition. So you might in box one have someone write January 20th, which is outside of the petitioning date. And then the rest of them might be correct, but because that one is wrong, there is the potential that the entire petition could be tossed out because of that, because they feel that that's an invalid date because of the time frame that's provided for petitioning. So make sure that you are putting in the date starting with January 23rd and following sequentially after that. And make sure you enter the full date. So you can't just put in 123 or Jan 23. You are going to need to put in 12324 or 2024, however they want to sign it. Again, not a lot of space. We recognize that. We ask that signers try to do their best to stay within that space, so that there's no question as to if it belongs to that line or the next line down or so on. Just try to guide them as they're signing these petitions. Okay. I see another question about, can you use two lines for signature? No. You should only keep it in the one line. If by chance someone does, they have a very swoopy signature or something that goes into a second line, just make sure that no one else is putting any other information in that line for the address or anything like that. So say that they do that on line number one and it goes into line number two, make sure that the next signer goes to line three. If at all best, if at all possible, guide them to put it into one particular box. Fran, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead with your question. Oops, you're muted, Fran.
Should the name be the same as the voter registration card?
Yes, at all possible, it should be. And again, if you have a walk list, it should be on that list as it would appear on their voter ID card. It's not as important. So if you have somebody that goes by Joe instead of Joseph, they more than likely are not going to throw that out. But if at all possible, have them sign as it would appear on their voter ID card. That way, then there are no questions overall.
Thank you.
So additional rules. Each signer may sign a petition for as many candidates as there are spots on the ballot. So what we are talking about here is that I'll use the example of our state auditor general. Right now, there are 5 individuals who have indicated they would like to be the next Democratic nominee for the auditor general, or I'm sorry, the attorney general here in Pennsylvania. So we will see 5 different petitions for those individuals. When signing those petitions, a voter can only sign for one of them. So it matches the number of positions that will ultimately be on the ballot in the fall. So we're talking about, in most cases, this is going to be one position for Congress, one position for our statewide row offices, one position for the president. So if there are multiple petitions out there for individuals, again, it comes down to, sometimes if you're carrying for more than one candidate, it would be, the obligation of the circulator to try to give a little bit of information about those candidates. If you are circulating for one candidate, obviously, if you get to that person first, just remind them that they cannot sign a second petition. And they can only sign that first one that you have. And then if a person signs for multiple petitions, so let's use our attorney general's race. Say someone absentmindedly doesn't remember that they signed for the attorney general and they sign 4 of the 5 petitions that are out there. What could potentially happen is if those are challenged, then those signatures could be removed from those petitions. It would not necessarily throw out the entire petition itself, but it would throw out that particular signature, and it would be thrown out not just on the one that's being challenged. It would be thrown out on all that that signature showed up on for that particular position. So it doesn't matter who signed first. A person might have signed the first day of petitioning for one candidate and then subsequently signed for three others over the course of the petitioning time. Regardless of what that date is, it comes down to that would be thrown out for every single one of the petitions for that position that person signed. So just make sure that you stress to the signers that yes, there may be multiple candidates for this office. You can only sign for one. If you haven't signed for one yet, this is the one you should be signing for, especially if you're caring for a specific candidate. Each signer must personally insert the information concerning their printed name, the residence, the date of signing, and everything. And what we mean by that is that they need to be writing that information in themselves. You will have people sometimes that will sign their name, print their name, and then they say, "Oh, you can fill in the rest," and start to walk away. No, that has to be everyone has to sign all of that information on their own. Otherwise, that can negate that particular signature. Never use ditto marks. This is the one thing that I see every year that I've helped with petitioning, the ditto marks. You have more than one person in a household. They sign their names and they see, oh well, my partner, my son, my daughter, whoever it might be, they wrote out the address. I'm just going to put ditto marks in the boxes below that, so I don't have to write them out again. That will negate that particular signature. You need to make sure that your signers are writing out completely all of the information for themselves, not using the ditto marks. Each signer must sign their name and insert their address exactly as it appears on their permanent registration record. So we talked about this already, that the signature should match what's on their voter ID card. We should not be using nicknames. Again, I have not seen specifically anyone thrown out for this reason. But again, we don't want to push the limits on this. So again, as someone is filling it out, you want to ensure that they're following the what's on their card. Yeah, so yeah, Robert, you mentioned that having a copy of the voter file. If you're going door to door and you have lists that are generated by the candidates, by campaigns, by party, that information, as I said, should reflect what the person's voter ID card says. So that should be what you're looking for when they sign it. Again, if you are out in public, if you're out of the public venue or you're out of the signing event and someone's signing, just make sure you're stressing to them, sign as you would. Everyone in Pennsylvania, I think, still has to sign the book when they go in. When they go in to vote, it should be that signature and exactly what's listed there: their first name, their last name, if they've included their middle name, if they use a nickname. However it shows up on that voter registration file should be how they are signing. And the other thing, and this is very antiquated. I threw this in here. I throw this in here every year because inevitably it still happens from time to time, where again, sometimes with older couples, it is not uncommon for the woman that is signing, if she follows her husband, sometimes she will put Mrs. John Doe instead of writing out her name as Jane Doe. So just be careful of that. Again, that is not nearly as prevalent as it used to be, but it is something that could still happen. Any variation from the actual name in that box could be questioned, could be challenged, and could have that particular signature thrown out. Some common mistakes that come up as well. Making certain that each signer of the petition is registered and enrolled party, a member of the party referred to in the petition, and they live in that particular precinct. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, where if you have a York County petition, you want to make sure that someone from York County in that district is signing that particular petition. But you also want to make sure that as we get into some of our smaller geographic races, so our state house races, our state senate races, you want to make sure that the person signing is from that district. The signer has to live in the district and has to be a registered member of the party that is on that petition. So if it is a state senate petition for a Democrat, they need to live in that state senate district, and they need to be registered as a Democrat in that party. Now, I will say, and I don't remember if I have this. Oh yeah, it's actually the fourth bullet point down. The rules have changed on who can circulate petitions. It used to be that you had to live in the district, you had to be a registered member of that party to circulate in that district. The rules are now, as long as you live in the Commonwealth, as long as you live in Pennsylvania, you can circulate a petition in any district, but you still must be a registered Democrat in that district or in Pennsylvania. So you have to be a PA resident, and you have to be enrolled in the political party referred to on the petition. You do not, however, need to live in that district. So if you are circulating a petition in one congressional district, but you live in a different one, as long as they're both in Pennsylvania, as long as you're in Pennsylvania, and as long as you're a Democrat, that's fine. Where it gets nuanced is obviously, again, if you are signing the petition, you have to live in that district and be a member of that party. The individual who executes the statement of circulator must be present when the elector signs their name. So that block I showed you at the beginning, at the back of the petition, when you fill that out, you are attesting that you have witnessed every signature that's on that form that you're turning in, and that you are attesting that you believe those are valid signatures. Obviously, in some cases, you're not necessarily going to know for sure if they're valid signatures. Some of that comes through in the challenge process. But as the circulator, you're saying that you watched them sign that petition. And I will give you an example. Years ago, we had a couple that one spouse went down one side of a road circulating a petition. The other spouse went down the other side of the road circulating the petition. And at the end of the day, when all of the petitions were turned in, there was only one circulator that filed. So it was the gentleman in the relationship. He was the one that signed off on all of those petitions. Well, through the process, someone that was challenging him and wanted to challenge him in the primary saw the two of them getting signatures on opposite sides of the streets and knew that there definitely were two people circulating petitions. However, once the petitions were filed, there was only one name showing as a circulator. So that petition was challenged, and they provided evidence of the fact that there were actually two circulators, not just one. And in that case, every petition was thrown out because there was no way to determine which individual circulated what petition. So they threw out the entirety of the petitions, and it actually was enough that that person was not allowed to be on the ballot then. So please make sure you are with your petitions at all times when they are getting signed. If you add an event, if you're at a petition signing event where you may have multiple petitions laying out, that's fine. You can have several petitions that you're overseeing. Just make sure that at the end of that event, you're picking up those petitions that you were watching and that you sign off on those petitions and no others. Because again, that could be a question that's raised if someone decided to challenge, especially in a very competitive primary race. We know that we've got several races this year where there are multiple candidates running for the same position. And if they could potentially challenge a petition and get it thrown out, and have one less person to compete with, they would certainly love to do that, I'm sure. So that's something just to keep in mind as you're circulating. Do not, as I mentioned earlier, don't execute the signature, the statement of the circulator. Don't sign that until the petition is completed. So again, if all 30 spots are filled in, perfect, sign it, it's done, don't have to worry about it. If 15 are signed, and you think, oh, I might actually get a few more signatures, do not sign that statement of circulator on the back until you know for sure you're done with that. Once you sign it, technically the rule is once you sign it, that ends that particular petition and you should start a new one. So keep that in mind. And then all dates of signers must be in chronological order. So this is something to keep in mind as people are dating the information on their petition. If you have someone that signs first day of petitioning on the 23rd, great. You know, they put 123 or 123 2024 on there. Perfect. That's exactly what they're supposed to do. If somebody else then comes right up after them, sees that, and just out of habit, you know, they're writing out their information and they put 124-24. Okay, that's chronological. No one's going to question that. Well, then if the next person comes up and says, wait, today's not the 24th, it's actually the 23rd, and they go back to the 23rd date, that will then negate everything that's out of order. You know, where that order is disrupted, it will negate all of the signatures from there forward. So you definitely want to make sure that as people are signing, they are putting the correct date there. We are petitioning over the course of the end of January through the beginning of February. So again, make sure people are putting a 2 when we get to February instead of a 1, because that again will throw people off. You know, you may have someone that just instinctively, I do it, you know, I'm always halfway through the month before I recognize I'm still putting the wrong date down for the month. So you want to make sure that, you know, if someone signs that signature and puts in the date, if we're in February, make sure it's 2/1/24, whatever, you know, the date might be. Just keep an eye on that, because that again is one of those things that if it gets out of order, it could potentially throw out any signature from where that error occurs through the rest. Because the whole thing with petitioning is what was the intent of the signer, and if someone challenges it, the Department of State's going to look at this and they're going to say, we don't know. We just don't know if somebody actually signed it incorrectly or if they signed it out of order by mistake. We don't know. So therefore, we have to throw out everything below that's being called into question. Couple other mistakes: incomplete address. So again, this is where you want to be careful that people are writing down what is on what their actual physical address is on the petition, and making sure they're including everything: the street number, the name of the street, the township, municipality, borough. Make sure all of that information is written out correctly. Use of a maiden name. Again, not uncommon for someone who just recently got married, that maybe hasn't changed their voter registration yet. They change they write their name differently than as it would appear. The there's a little bit of leniency if they're married and the voter registration hasn't been changed yet. There's a little bit of leniency for that. If they write their maiden name and their voter registration had already been changed to their married name, that's where actually we've seen some people question that in the past, to say, well, that's not that person. That's not how they appear on the voter rolls, you know. So again, just be careful. I don't know that I've seen anyone actually thrown out for this reason, but we definitely have had individuals that have asked that question: is this a signature that can be thrown out for that? Um, so, Lynn, you have the question, if there's an error in a single block, can just the error be struck through with yes? So we're gonna actually that's the last thing here. If there's an error, you should draw a black line through the entire line on that petition, and then have the signer start again at the line below. So yes, a new line should be used, striking out that entire record on the petition. So that's a great question. Do not have somebody try to cross it out and write in that same block. Do not have them try to write over top of what they've already written there. Just have them draw a straight line through and redo it on the next line so that there are no questions. Couple other things, suspicious signatures, same handwriting, duplicates, and illegible. This sounds a little bit odd, but these are things that definitely will get called into question. If there are two signatures back to back and it looks like the exact same person signed the name because the handwriting looks exact, that can be called into question. If there are multiple handwriting samples in that same line. So for instance, somebody started to write they signed their name, they printed their name, and then someone else finished the line for them. Obviously, that's different handwriting. That could throw that out. Duplicates. If you sign your name more than once on a petition, it can be thrown out. If that signature could be thrown out. If you sign your name accidentally twice on the same petition, so you signed it once and then maybe you're at an event later on and you signed it again. Actually, both of those signatures would be thrown out. They would not keep just the first one and throw out all of the duplicates. They would actually throw out all of the signatures. Again, not knowing what the intent was, they will say, we're calling that into question and that can be thrown out. And illegible. Obviously, signatures are a little bit different. The signatures themselves, I have a very sloppy signature, so that's hard to read. That's fine as long as it matches what's on your voter file. But for the rest of the information, you want individuals to be filling out that information as clearly as possible, as legible as possible. Because again, if you cannot read what is there, if someone writes out their address or they write out even their own name and you can't read what is there, someone that challenges that can look at that and say, look, we have no idea who this person is. We don't know if this is actually their address. We can't read it, so therefore we're questioning it. That signature could be thrown out as well. So just encourage individuals as they're filling this out, take an extra second or two and have them try to write this as legibly as possible. One of the biggest mistakes I have seen in the entire time that I have worked with petition signers is that last column is for the date. It obviously says that there, the date. There are individuals, and again, my brain sometimes works this way as well, where I'm writing out my address, and once you get to the municipality, I write Manchester Township, and instinctively, my next thought is either to write PA or to write my zip code. And if there's a space there, that's instinctively what I would think would go there. That is not the case. It is the date. So you want to make sure that folks are putting the date in that particular column. Again, sometimes what people will do is they'll start to write their zip code and they'll be like, oh, that's right, that's the date. They'll try to cross that out and write the date in there. Unfortunately, that whole record should just be a line drawn through it and have them do it again. Just so there are no questions as to who tried to alter that date, who tried to alter that information. You want it to be as clear as possible for those that are looking at these petitions. And then the last thing is you'll see at the bottom of the petitions when you have them, there'll be a blank space that says blank of blank, number of pages. Do not fill that out as a circulator. You do not need to worry about that. That will be used when a candidate or a campaign files their petitions with the Department of State. They will go through and they will number each one of those pages so that they are in order. If you write in the date, if you write in the page number, it's not going to throw out a petition. If that has to be crossed out and a different number put in there, that's not going to have someone say, "Oh my gosh, this whole petition needs to be thrown out. The page number was wrong." It is just from a clerical kind of standpoint, it's much easier if you just don't put anything there so that when the campaigns are putting these all together, they can do the numbering themselves. So, not a major mistake, not a major issue if you would do it. But just, as we're going through, we like to say, just leave it blank. If you don't have to fill it out, don't fill it out. All right, so we're back to some more questions. Any questions about just, kind of some of the do's and don'ts of what goes on with petitioning? And again, I know we've been posting questions in the chat as we've been going, and folks have been asking questions. But if you think of anything, throw it in the chat, unmute yourself. Okay. Don't see any questions. So hopefully that means either I answered everything as we were going through, or I'm just that good at what I'm doing here. So I'm gonna go with I answered everyone's questions as we were going through. So I do want to just say one thing with these errors that we talked about, things that that we call that we say watch for. For most of them, it may only cost a person a signature or two. If it was a question of legibility, that's not going to wipe out an entire petition. That's only going to wipe out that one particular signature. But there are certain things that could potentially, as I mentioned, with the dates, if the dates are messed up, that could call into question a large chunk of the signatures on that petition. And when you start talking about, a larger number of actual signatures that are getting thrown out, then we start to reduce the number of signatures that a candidate has collected, and that ultimately could put them close to or below the minimum that they need for this. So it is important to do that. Make sure that you're following these rules. Sarah has a great question, and I'm glad you put that in here. Can a person register to vote before signing their petition? And the answer to that is yes, but. So what we typically tell folks is they should be registered in advance of signing the petition, as long as if they are filling out a paper form or they are doing it online, as long as the date that they are registering is before or the day of the signature on the petition, they should be fine. That should not be called into question. We typically tell folks try to do it online if possible, because that puts it into the system immediately and it eliminates any questions about whether or not the person signed on one date, registered on one date, signed on another. It helps to eliminate some of that doubt. But yes, you can have somebody register, and as long as the date that is on the petition falls either the same day or after, that should not be an issue. Can we have people to our house? Perfect question, perfect segue to the next slide here. So where do you get signatures? Perfect question, John. Thank you for that. and actually Michelle as well. Are there places where multiple candidates can show up? Absolutely. So there's a couple different options for folks when it comes to petitioning. You can do door to door. I don't know about you, but I don't think I want to be outside right now knocking on a door trying to get a signature. It's cold. The weather's not great. But that is the diehard, tried and true method of getting signatures. If you have a list that has come from a campaign, that has come from a candidate, of people that maybe have signed petitions before, it's a great way to go door to door, especially if it's in your own neighborhood. Get to know some of the registered voters there, and get them to sign. But yes, to the questions that are here, anything and everything that you can do to try to get multiple people to you is better, or to get people driven out to various events is better. So there are petition signing parties. You can invite people to your house. You can invite them to a restaurant. You can invite them to a public venue and say, "Here are the petitions I'd like you to sign. Please consider signing for these particular candidates." There are a ton of petition signing events that candidates do, that parties do, that clubs do. Here in York County, there are, I think, right now 16 petition signing events that are being sponsored by either the Democratic Party, by clubs throughout the county, Democratic clubs throughout the county, or by candidates themselves. And typically, unless it's a candidate focused event, typically those other events are going to have petitions for everyone. So when the party hosts an event, we are going to have every petition available so that folks can come in and sign for whoever they want. We'll have designated volunteers to watch those petitions, those types of things. So yes, that's absolutely, to Michelle, to your point, that is where multiple candidates can be at one time to get their petition signed. And then, of course, to John, to your point, can you do the house parties? Absolutely. One of the things that we found over the years that are phenomenal is when you can pull together 10 of your friends, neighbors, family, whoever it might be, you bring them to your house, give them a little bit of food, give them something to drink, and say, "Hey, let's sign some petitions." You get 10 signatures on a petition. That's huge. That's huge towards for a lot of our candidates. So that's absolutely a possibility as well. Contacting just registered voters, people that that are registered Democrats. That again, maybe this says something about me. I don't know, but all of our neighbors that are around us that are Democrats, I typically will either call them up, or my wife will go over and stop by and visit them and say, "Hey, here's the petitions that we have this year. Do you want to sign these?" We don't do the house party, but we do make sure that everybody that we know that we're friendly with, and that we have that we're family with. I guess those can both go hand in hand, right? You can be friendly with family too. So, in those cases, going to the people that are registered Democrats that will sign, absolutely, is important. And then, as it says, public venues, going to libraries, to the markets. We're fortunate in York City. We have two public markets in the city and one just outside of the city, where individuals can go and stand outside of those venues and get signatures. The thing that you have to be careful when you're doing a public type of venue like that is just making sure that you have registered Democrats and that they are in the district that they are signing for, especially if you're doing events close to where the line is for those districts. You're going to find people that maybe are coming to the public market that are from all over the county, but maybe don't live in that particular district. So you just want to be careful of that, asking them that question before they sign. I will say, probably the two in the middle, the petition signing and the contacting the registered Democrats, those two activities are probably the most fruitful because you know you are going to get people that want to sign, that are registered, that will be focused on, the candidates that they want to sign for. Door to door obviously depends on if, first of all, someone answers the door, and second of all, how many petitions you want to carry. If you're only carrying just a few, that's a good way to get signatures as well. And then the public venues definitely is very much hit or miss, depending on a lot of different factors. Lynn, thank you for posting the Democratic the York County Federation of Democratic Women is having their meeting and a petition signing event on January 27th. Our Northern York County Democratic Club has multiple events scheduled throughout the end of January, beginning of February. Our Hanover for Progress, that club has, I believe, 4 events set up in the Hanover area. So if you're in York County, if you're on this meeting and you're in York County, like I said, we have 16 different events. If you go to our yorkdems.org, our website, right on the front page is a block that you can click on that will take you to all of the petition signing events that are coming up. And that actually includes some of our clubs have their monthly meetings during this time. And that will give you an idea of those meetings are listed there as well, because typically petitions are available then. So yeah, thanks, Robert, for putting the address up. So all good questions, and I'm at the end. So do we have any other questions related to petitioning, related to this whole process? As I said at the beginning, it might seem like there's a lot of things to keep in mind, a lot of little nuanced things to pay attention to. Typically, if you just pay attention to kind of some of those things that we talked about, you're not going to run into any issues. If there's ever a question about a signature, you can always strike through it. The one thing that I will tell folks too, if you're a volunteer who is working with a candidate or a campaign, if you aren't sure, if you're looking at a signature and you're like, oh, I just don't know, refer to the campaign and see what their recommendation is. The candidate may say, it's fine, keep it in there. If it's something that's blatantly, incorrect or can't be read or whatever, you can strike through that in advance as well. But overall, I would say, just as long as you're keeping an eye on it as you're doing it, you should be able to avoid any major questions down the road. So, any other questions for tonight? All right. Well, as you can see here, we've got a lot of different ways to get in touch with us. We have our phone number, our email address, and our website are listed here. If you are not from York County, which I just see Robert just posted about the 14th Congressional District, that's not in York County, but we are thrilled to have you here tonight. If you have questions that you want to ask, feel free to reach out to us here in York County. If I can't find the answer, I know most of the county chairs for a lot of the surrounding areas, and would be happy to put you in touch with them. Again, you can always reach out to the campaigns and the candidates as well. They may have some advice too. So with that, I say, Look, I see a hand up, last minute hand. Lynn got it in there right at the end. Go ahead, Lynn.
Yeah, this is actually just for you. Will the office be open tomorrow?
It should be, yes.
Okay. I still have your 100 Biden Harris signs that I haven't been able to drop off yet.
Okay.
You may want those for Saturday.
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
That would be good. Yeah, if you get them there, that's fine. Yeah, we'll
Thank
talk.
you.
If you can't, we'll figure it out. So
okay, I'll get them there tomorrow. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, again, thanks everyone for coming out tonight. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out at any time. I'll be happy to try to answer those. And as I tell folks all the time, if I don't know the answer, I will definitely find someone who can answer that for you. So thank you again and good luck and have fun petitioning. Thanks.